Listen, I can't really answer that question for you. It's up to you to decide whether you trust him or not. For those of you who are on the fence, you're actually doing a really good thing, because if you have looked, I mean, let's just say even the last decade, at leadership worldwide, let alone even the Western democracies, it looks pretty friggin' bad. So if you're on the fence and you still aren't like 100% on him, why don't we try to investigate, right? I'm not going to do the whole thing, because I'm not someone who has like an immense amount of, emotional or I don't have as much energy to put into politics as much as I like to like look at these things and come to my own conclusions about how politics works. I really don't give a shit that much, okay? But I will give you one piece of evidence that to me looks like he is quote unquote on our side. He's on the side of the people. And before I move on to that, ask yourself what makes for someone who is trustworthy, and ask yourself what makes for someone who is a good leader. What makes for someone who is a moral leader? I think that's what we're all trying to question. So think about that. And now we're going to move on to the first piece of evidence in my mind, which gives him some ammo as to being trustworthy. We have the We scandal. Now, if you remember 2 years ago, this was huge. And there are a whole bunch of other scandals and a whole bunch of other things that Pierre Poilievre has covered. But this is the one that to me has the most relevance, because I actually have been to a We charity event as someone who volunteered to be there so that I could get out of work. So what the We charity does is they, just very quickly, what they do is they hire, sorry, no, they don't hire anyone unless it's like the performers on stage, okay? What they do is they get the big companies that are nearby in Canada, and they get these people who work there to volunteer over there. So they save a lot of money doing that. They don't have to pay. The only reason why I did that is because I didn't want to work. I absolutely did not want to work. So anyways, so the We charity is very interesting, okay? And why don't we play a clip? We'll play this one right here.
Then we have here an email from Craig Kielburger to Bill Morneau. And, we'd love to learn about the attached documents in it, but unfortunately, in what is to...
So before we continue, he's already mentioned the Kielburgers who are in charge of the We charity, and he also mentioned the previous finance minister, Bill Morneau.
Become a trend throughout this package. It's all the relevant information in the two documents are completely blacked out. Another email from Craig Kielburger that went to someone in the government the same day he spoke to Bill Morneau on the phone, but we don't know who received the email, that's blacked out, or what the email said, all blacked out. Here's an email from the minister responsible for the department that granted the $500 million to her top bureaucrat. Again, all the substance is blacked out. And that would not be the first time. Next page, blacked out. This page, blacked out. This page, blacked out. This page, blacked out. Why don't we ask what's in those pages at a parliamentary committee?
He made a great big show right there, okay? Showing that his opponents, his political opponents, or people who are corrupt, let's just say, okay, I'm just going to put it like that. People who are corrupt are lying, right? He can't, it's unparliamentary to call someone a liar. So they can't really use those words. Essentially, he's revealing to the public on national news that our leaders are working in tandem with other large corporations or whatever, charities, doesn't really matter what it is. It's very large and you're not a part of it, okay? And they are covering up their misdeeds. this is one thing that he's trying to do. He's trying to reveal the truth.
Well, I'll tell you why. Justin Trudeau shut down those parliamentary committees. When did he do it? The same day these documents became public. What a coincidence. The Prime Minister goes to the Governor General's office and says, Gigi, I'm about to release some very damning information, but I've covered it in black ink, and if you'll just shut down Parliament for me today, then none of the opposition politicians can force me to remove that ink and reveal the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a cover-up. Conservatives will not relent. We will continue to fight to get to the truth. The Prime Minister personally intervened to get a $500 million grant to a group that had paid his family $500,000. He is covering it up by blacking it out and shutting down our investigations. But I've got news for him. Conservatives are just getting started.
Okay, so he's essentially spelling out the kind of corruption and misdeeds that the current government in power has been doing. And this is one thing. And why is this important, particularly about the We Charity? People do not understand actually the importance of the demolition of the We Charity, because, as I have mentioned, I volunteered there. I had no idea what I didn't even know it existed up until, my manager told me that it was a thing, and I was like, okay, let's go. So I go there and I find out it's in a huge venue, and there are thousands of children from elementary to high school, pretty much the whole gamut. And it is a very, very, very expensive production. There's cameras, lights, top tier, I don't want to say top tier, but like performers, right, that are known in Canada. And it's a high energy production, and they talk about these ideas and these narratives, such as the one that I remember was anti-bully. I hear these things, it comes, it's become so passé for me that it goes in one ear, it comes out the other. But anyways, yeah, that's me. And why is this important? It's because the We Charity events are essentially a factory for future voter base for the Liberals. I'm going to repeat this. I can't seem to say this right. The We Charity event is a factory for the future voter base of the Liberals, because when Trudeau and family and Trudeau and company are heavy-handedly being an active part in the We Charity, I mean, for God's sake, look at this. Look at this. The guy's right there. When this has been shut down by Pierre, that means the Liberals are on their way out, okay? Because that is an amazing, amazing production that really does the job. That's one piece of evidence to me, which for me leans towards being trustworthy. Or another aspect that people think about is, can we trust the Conservatives? And I think that's an equally good question, right? And generally the answer is no. But I think we can trust Pierre. Like you can trust an individual, but that doesn't mean you can trust the party around that individual. I mean, let me give you the example of in the United States with Trump. Was Trump trustworthy? If people have made up their minds about these things, but let's just say, for devil's advocate, let's just say, is Trump trustworthy? Yes. Was the Republican Party trustworthy? No, absolutely not. So one person really can make the difference for the entire party. And now that he's leader, by landslide, first ballot. I don't really know how this thing works, the voting thing works. I think, the rest of the Conservative Party is looking at this. They're like, shit, we can't, even if the rest of the Conservative Party was WEF friendly, they look at this guy who denounces that, in my one and only video previous to this one, he denounced the WEF. I mean, he can say that, right? We don't know if that's totally true, but he denounces it. And not only that, he's number one. You know, everyone voted because of this guy. That means he holds the key to the future of the Conservative Party. Otherwise, they're just going to be, the Conservative Party is just going to be the respectful losers for the rest of eternity because of how the Liberals are successfully in placing mandates and whatever to quell any rising opponents. I think another aspect that we need to look at is what is the message that Pierre Poilievre is trying to convey, right? Because if you look at the glut of his content, first of all, he's doing the Trump thing by being online and having a huge following and a huge presence online. For those of you who are interested in being a political leader in the future, you have to be directly involved with, and I'm not using this word pejoratively. If your propaganda is not direct, if you're not speaking directly to your future voter base, to people, if you're not speaking directly to people, you're screwed. And you have to be online. You have to, say the message and be the representation for the people. You can't, the guy has even said, we will take, if I recall correctly, we're gonna cut the funding to the CBC or whatever, right? Like, think about, that's another thing. Like, that's a huge thing to say, especially in Canada, because like mainstream, the Dino news over here, mainstream news, essentially has a really strong hold on a lot of the voter base over here, right? And so a lot of people, people still think that the Canadian news is people still think Canadian news is trustworthy, right? And no, they're just as trustworthy as like Fox or CNBC or whatever. So look at the values he's trying to espouse. Look at all the content that he has. Like the guy has literally talked about inflation. Like no one else, like who the fuck talks about inflation on the liberal side? The guy literally, and he says it in a way that the average person can understand. Look at these gas prices. The guy has a team who knows how to run, who knows how to put titles in a thumbnail. The guy has a team that actually knows what they're doing. So, is he a WEF puppet? I really doubt it. Another thing I want to dispel, or address, I can't really dispel this. People often talk about Canada being for Canadians. One of the unfortunate things that has happened in all of Western democratic countries is this insane level of immigration. The sentiment of even the most sanest average person, usually they would say, oh, immigration's great, right? It's not like we want like a huge flood of people from all over the world, but I think it's okay to let people in. And this is the reality that we're going to live in. And, Pierre Poilievre wants to reduce immigration, but it's still a lot of people, right? And I think this is something that we don't have a choice in dealing with. Again, I'm not professionally minded when it comes to politics. To me, I look at the demographics of Canada and, because of how tragic the economy has become and how tragic the culture has become, we really don't have a choice but to let people in. And his thing is pretty much, we're going to let the cream of the crop in. And that to me makes the most sense when the ship is burning. I don't think the ship is burning. I think Canada has a lot of potential, right? But I think his whole shtick is essentially truth and meritocracy. And that's the best that we're going to get. We have a lot of problems in Canada, and I think people are too idealistic. Looking at Pierre Poilievre and listening to what his values are, it seems pretty clear that it's common sense policies, honestly. So, yeah, anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I'm not final on what my opinions are, but maybe subject to change. But for now, I think he's pretty trustworthy.